everybody is writing her off at their peril.
Kamala Harris, it's not wide open if she runs.
Yeah.
Not that she will hold on to it necessarily, but she definitely starts out with a massive lead. And I think it's true, though. If she doesn't run, it's really hard to know exactly where that vote goes. And I got this data point here. As you can see, every nominee since 1992 has dominated the black vote. So you basically need to win the black vote if you would like to be the Democratic nominee for president.
It is, I would say this, it is the rule that is the most important about the primary, is that none of us are the most important person in the Democratic Party. You watching may think you are the most important person in the Democratic Party, or people in Washington or whatever. The most important person in the Democratic Party is a 68-year-old retired postal worker who is a African-American woman, and if she doesn't like you, you are not going to be president of the United States as a Democrat.
How do you know that there's not 68-year-old black women from South Carolina watching our feed, Rob?
That's true. That's true.
We're super popular.
I'm starting from the place of it's literally just our moms. So
Correct.
that's true.
Correct.
Hello to all of those South Carolinians who
Yes.
are watching the show
Vote for
tonight.
Rob.
Vote for me.
This is crosstabs aggregated from a bunch of different polls by Adam Carlson from a few months ago. As you can see, Kamala at 42% with the black vote and nobody else even close. Gavin loosely hanging in the picture at 13% and nobody else over 5%. And I mean, like, that says a lot, Rob. We talked about, the domination of the black vote being essential to who becomes the nominee. Kamala starting with a significant lead here. And, you worked for her. If everyone had listened to you famously, she would be president right now. But
That's
unfortunately,
100%.
other people overrode all of your best wisdom. What do you think? Like, is she going to run again? Should she run again? Is she being disrespected by being written off here with like a dominant position that she starts the primary from?
Yeah, my basic take is that if Kamala Harris were to call me,
Which she might.
which she won't,
She
she
won't.
will not call me. But
she has his
ma'am,
number.
thank you for watching the feed tonight. We really do appreciate it. What I'll say is, if I were her, if she gets in the race, it's going to turn into a referendum on her candidacy, how good she did in 2024, the mistakes she made. That is all going to be litigated. But you look at these numbers, they're really good. I mean, black voters are with Kamala Harris. And there's this thing where I think people want to kind of ignore that fact and sort of write it off and say, she's running again. But we'll really talk about Gavin. The fact is, until those numbers break, she is a formidable candidate in 2028. And I also have to say this. I also think that is why it is probably not wise for her to jump in, because rather than being attacked all the time on her record, she is in this position where she is the most popular person with this voting bloc, and it puts her in a position to be basically the kingmaker in the party versus sort of being a person who is going to just sort of be ruthlessly attacked by everybody else for a really long time in a way that may be effective.
Yeah.
I think it's a gamble. But again, I think that everybody is writing her off at their peril and is sort of treating her as a sideshow, and like her numbers are real.
Right.
They are very real,
Right.
and they're very deep.
And I will say it's not just name recognition, because you do get that. Like, it's way too early to be pulling this stuff, way too early, arguably, to be writing a stupid blog where I endlessly cover everything that these people do. But like, it's not just early numbers. When you look at the black vote, then you look at the book events she's been doing across the South, and it's like every one of these events, she's like selling out crowds of 5,000 people, and there's like screaming fans, primarily black audiences, especially younger women, older women. Like, this is real. She has real support. And at the same time, like, if I was her, I would not run it back. Like, I don't think people really want to relive 2024. And I wouldn't say most of that is her fault. She was handed a very difficult card with a super unpopular sitting administration, and she was the vice president. She didn't do enough, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion, to, draw a distinction between her and Biden, set herself apart from the unpopular president. But yeah, I just don't see it going well if she runs. Well, I agree with you that she's being like written off way too casually here. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a dicey path to go down, and it would be hard to be like the former vice president and nominee and like end up having another campaign where you don't make it to the first contest. Not that that's what would happen, but it seems not implausible to me.
Yeah, I think she's formidable. I think she's a candidate you have to take seriously. If it were me looking at it, I would say I would like to be the uncontested most influential person in the primary,
Right.
versus somebody who is going to be attacked all day, every day, and potentially, have a worse downside.
Yep, you can see both sides. It's hard to look at those numbers and just be like, I'm going to walk away, you know? So I totally get it. Politico here, Kamala Harris draws the most buzz at Dems' first 2028 cattle call. As we talked about, like, the support is real. There is, like, The vibes in the room were electric when she was being announced and walking forward, and we'll see that in a second. Politico says former Vice President Kamala Harris packed the hall to the capacity and was met with multiple standing ovations and chants urging her to run again. Governor Wes Moore also brought the audience to his feet, and Senator Booker closed out the convention's candidate appearances with a fiery speech that crescendoed into sustained applause from the crowd. So, those are the three black candidates or potential candidates that made the pilgrimage there. And then we got Gallego, Kelly, Buttigieg, and Pritzker, and we'll tick through some of these. And again, Harris, after this, will be making her way a couple stops across the South, which, again, she's doing all of the things that you would do if you were going to run. She's certainly giving herself the option to do it and doing it in a way that positions her as strongly as possible. And that's exactly what she should be doing if she thinks it's something she might consider. You'll see in this clip both the overwhelming support for her, and then you'll see the second part that I think is also important.
So are you going to run again in 28?
Listen, I might. I'm thinking about it. One thing I'm really clear about also is the status quo is not working. And hasn't been working for a lot of people for a long time.
That's just tough to run on that argument. The status quo is not working and hasn't been working for a long time, including when I was vice president for 4 years. I just think that that's going to be a hard thing to outrun.
It's tricky, and it's, by the way, the bind that she was in 24 with all of us, right?
Right.
Which is that, you're in a position where it is a status quo election, but you can't authentically say, well, I'm the change agent when
Right.
I'm the vice president. She was stuck to a pretty unpopular situation, and that's hard. And so you can see she's trying to say, I'm doing it right this time. But it's a tough case to make. And it's, by the way, I think it's a tough case to make for, candidly, anybody involved with the last administration. Hey there.
That's why Rob is reduced
that's why
doing
I'm
a
here.
fake show.
That's why I'm here talking to all 12 of you.
Oh man. But yeah, you can hear the crowd buzzing. It was electric in there when she said she wanted to run again or was considering running again. And I think that is real. And Pete Buttigieg came on later in the day. I have, as is my profession, I guess, I have watched all 10 of these performances. I thought Pete was good. He obviously has a lot of work to do with the black vote. That is the number one thing that people ask when they're like, oh, Pete's going to run it back. How is he going to reach black voters? Because famously, that was his biggest problem last time. And I thought he was quite good. I actually think Pete is a better politician than he was back then. I think partly since him and Chasten adopted twins, he's more human and he emotes better. He does a better job of connecting with people. At the same time, it was such a tough spot coming on after Kamala because she's just everyone's like, fuck yeah, run again, we love you. And then it's and now the whitest man you've ever seen is going to come out. Half the crowd was filing out. No offense to Pete. They were just all right, we saw the main event. There's a reason headliners normally come on last. Yeah. And he was well, wait, I've got stuff to say too.
Nobody knows anything.